But yeah, Akia.
No. Yeah. Hello and welcome, everyone. Today we're exploring one of the most powerful tools available to every human being, the breath, as a gateway into higher states of consciousness, flow, creativity, intuition, and performance. My guest today is RahQuel Star Achiaviatta, founder of the Energy of Breath School and creator of Gamma Breath Training. Her work focuses on helping people access gamma consciousness, a state associated with heightened awareness, connection, creativity, and flow, and learning how to intentionally shift into that state through the power of breath. And what I love about this conversation is that we're exploring something incredibly practical because no matter where you are, what you're doing, or what you're facing, your breath is always available. RahQuel is also a contributor to our upcoming book, The Way of the Initiate. For those of you who aren't familiar with the project yet. It's a collection of stories from people who experienced a moment of awakening, remembering, or transformation that changed the trajectory of their lives forever. And that book will be available in September. Welcome, RahQuel.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. And I want to start with the moment you knew there was no going back to who you were before.
All right. Well, that first moment was when I was a ballerina. That was my first career. I really thought I'd be dancing till I was in my 60s, professionally or such. And at that point, I was in my late 20s. I had had quite an illustrious career, though at the same time, a lot of injuries, and I was also anorexic. It was a very difficult time. It kind of self imploded with emotions and traumas and issues rather than being able to resolve them in a functional way. And so I knew I needed to take a break. I had bargained with myself, I had bargained with the universe, please, I need to get out of this. I want to keep dancing, but I just couldn't turn back. So basically, I had an injury before the opening night of a lead role of a performance I really wanted to do, and I just needed to take a break. So I took that time and started seeking out different healing modalities and ways to heal myself from the issues I was having. And I just knew I couldn't go back. I didn't know what was ahead, but I just took that leap of faith because it was just too unbearable to keep going the way it was going.
Yeah. And such an incredible shift that moment in time. What was the greatest lesson that moment taught you?
Well, I realized it later, but that I could just trust myself, that I could take that leap of faith and go into the unknown, and that whatever I needed was going to unfold step by step. And also, I was fortunate because at the time I had a very powerful mentor, a very illuminated being called Rob Grand, who had been guiding me, attuning me to Reiki, teaching me about different healing modalities. And there was this activation of energy that was underway within me that made it that I could trust in myself to just take this leap.
So you took the leap, you trusted, you learned later that that was one of the big lessons. And what, so how did you go from there and that moment to getting led to this path of studying the breath in the consciousness and gamma states?
Well, it really started with, I'll backtrack a little bit. One of the injuries, I had sprained my ankle for like the fourth time in my dance career, and I wandered over to this holistic bookstore that I used to frequent and I loved so much. There were so many titles like You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay and The Celestine Prophecy, Conversations with God, all these books that were so popular in the 90s. And I was speaking to the owners of the store about how I'd hurt my ankle and might they know of anybody who does reflexology. And that's when they introduced me to Rob, who actually had a healing room in the back of the bookstore. And instead of doing reflexology, he worked with me with Reiki. And the Reiki helped me heal my ankle so much more quickly than just typical physiotherapy. And so then I was dancing again more quickly and establishing more and more well-being. And so it was that introduction into the healing world that led me into pursuing more of that. Between all the books I was reading, which I have since then have collected how many titles of metaphysical and self-help books, and the healing work that I ensued with learning from Rob and training, and then all the different holistic practitioners he could introduce me to, I remember a moment when I said to him that, Rob, one day I want to be a coach like you to artists like me.
Wow. I love that your story starts with Reiki because I have a very similar beginning point with Reiki. So it's interesting because I was also, the Celestine Prophecy, all these different books that I had read and had, gotten myself into and was like really interested in. But it was 2009 for me, and I'd gone through this really traumatic breakup, and I thought I was drinking. I was just drinking like crazy, and I knew that if I drove, I was going to kill myself or someone else. So I called my friend Rachel, and I was like, "Yeah, I need you to come pick me up. Like I can't drive." And she took me to her home, and I woke up the next morning, and I was like, what I called back then numb. I was just numb, and I said, "What did you do to me?" And she's like, "Reiki." And I was like, "What is that?" Turns out that was the first time in my life I'd ever experienced peace. But I had called it numb because my life up to that point had been such chaos that I had no idea what peace felt like. And so it was like this thing. And I've met so many people that, I say Reiki's kind of like the gateway drug. It was like the gateway into these other practices and these bigger things. So it's like it's so well known that it gives people a foot in the door, but it's just like the baseline of the practices and the things that you can learn. So you started in Reiki, and we're working through all these things, but you've come into this world of the breath and the consciousness and the gamma state. So let's first start with breath. What is so magical and important about breath, and why is that the path that you decided to choose?
Yes. Well, this is how I'll describe breath. Well, first of all, breath is with us all the time. It's part of our autonomic system. It's just always with us. So that's one of the most important aspects of being alive in a human body. Although there are now breath practitioners who can hold their breath for over 20 minutes, like truly most humans within a couple minutes without breath would die. So breath is intrinsic to us being alive in a human body. But way more than that, and I'm so glad that now it's becoming the advent of breath in the world, being known as a consciousness tool, is true. We can intentionally work with our breath. There's infinite types of practices, or almost infinite, for the breath. And if we intentionally focus on the breath practice and utilize it, we can transform our health, our emotional well-being, our mindset, our life, all our behaviors can shift. So that's really the case. I didn't come into the awareness of breath as a consciousness tool until 2001. But before that, I learned about a whole bunch of other modalities. But I am so glad that back then in 2001, when I was introduced to breath as a practice, and started training in it, I remember proclaiming, well, one day breath will be like yoga. It'll be just known all over the world. And now we're at that time. Now it's really becoming known. It's becoming maybe a household word. And I have so much I could describe about the breath for sure. And that's what I've trained in about 20 different healing modalities at this point. Though had I discovered the breath first, I may have gone with that. I will add, though, that yes, Reiki as a gateway, and I've attuned so many people to Reiki, hundreds of people, and all of them report a big life change. Something just happens with the activation into that frequency. So I don't ever underestimate the power of Reiki as a big foundation and platform for sure. I would say that that is the approach that supported me all the way until now. But yeah, the breath, I mean, there's so much I could say about the breath, so we'll see where it goes.
Well, okay. Well, let's start with, was there a specific experience that you had that convinced you that the breath was far more powerful than we had been told? Was there something that was like, I have to do this?
Yes, well, I have so many things to add to that. So, fast forward even a career as a DJ and having been a ballerina and gone to grad school for psychology and all these things. When I met somebody who was just starting to train in breath work through this holistic community. So I went with him to a couple of workshops, and that shifted my lifestyle. It turned my DJ lifestyle upside down because I had been DJing in the clubs till morning. I had been jet setting to other countries. I was tired of the jet lag. I was tired of all the cigarette smoke in all the clubs back then. And all of a sudden doing these breath practices and also active meditations shifted something about my energy and my approach. I realized, okay, I don't want to do the jet set DJing right now. I need a break. I don't want to keep repeating this just airport cigarette smoke space, and I need to access a new space of replenishment. And also, I wish I had understood about breathing in a conscious way as a dancer, as the elite athlete that I was in the dance world. Nobody taught us about breathing with any kind of pattern or anything. So when with my partner at the time, V10, we decided to take all these breath trainings in Italy and India. All of a sudden I was experiencing these big emotional clearings. We were doing all this primal therapy, all this encounter work, all these big cathartic releases, and I was like, wow, I've never felt at this level. I've never accessed the anger and the hurt or the rage that I felt in my childhood this way, even if I've experienced counseling or Reiki or all these other healing modalities. It's like breath really makes me feel alive. I learned to get embodied. I learned that with the breath, I could hold space for myself and be present to any emotion rather than trying to escape or manage from my mind whatever's going on. Is able to sit with, feel, be with, have tools with which to breathe through and transform my emotions and my energy. So the turning point with the breath came in 2001, within just a few weeks of being in the trainings. And I haven't looked that back ever since, because now it's 25 years later, and I've
Yeah.
been practicing breath ever since. One huge, long breath session for 25 years, basically. You
Well, I
know?
love that this is a technique. This is something that we all have available to us that we can use. And it's not like, like a lot of times when you think of emotional healing or cathartic, or we got to go talk to a therapist, go to a psychologist, or there's NLP, or there's all these like subconscious stuff, right? There's these things, but this is something I don't have to go into an event, figure out what my trauma was, go find a path into something. I can use my breath to heal and clear my body without actually needing to go into some sort of story around it.
Completely. So the moment we start to breathe, even just slowly, easily, to tune into our physical body, which I want to say for the most part, most humans in the modern world are up in their minds all day, right? We're like traversing, planning, doing things. The moment we even just slow down our breath to feel into our body, trust that our body can be the container in which to be present, notice all our senses and so on, we can then just start to even feel what's really going on with ourselves. And that's already a huge start for sure. And this can be
Yeah.
done anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you that are watching right now, just take a moment and just take a conscious, intentional breath. We haven't even gotten into gamma breath yet, which is what we're going to get into, but just one conscious, intentional breath, and just notice how your system shifts. It's so immediate. You just feel the energy shift. So now that we're all there in that shifted energy, you have created something called gamma breath training. You have a gamma breath training, and it's gamma breath, and it's connected to gamma consciousness. Now, I know most listeners have probably heard of like alpha or theta or maybe even delta, right? These different brain waves, but very few understand gamma. So, share with our audience, what is this gamma consciousness, this gamma state, and then we can dive deep into the gamma breath.
Absolutely. Well, so gamma is a high frequency brain state. It is one of 30 hertz vibration per second through the brain, and exponentially higher, that we can access in several ways. For example, like binaural beats or meditation, or artists being in the zone, monks who've been meditating for years. Yet the quickest, most accessible way is with our breath. And the basic gamma breath sequence, which takes a minute, which I'll guide us through here at some point today, already gets us into the beginnings of the gamma frequency. Another way people can access gamma is actually through ceremonies. If you want to go to the jungle and do an immersion with a plant ceremony with a shaman, then you'll get into exponentially high gamma states. Yet the safest, most tried-true way is with our breath. So to tell you a little bit more of the story, there's a man named Corey Herter who created the actual gamma breath sequences. He gave them to me in order to create gamma breath sessions and gamma breath work, as I have copyrighted it, and then the gamma breath facilitator training, which encompasses a very broad spectrum of work. But so Corey created, this is an interesting story, so I'll share it. He created these breaths by actually experiencing a bunch of near-death experiences. He had had a car accident as a kid, which led to a brain injury and led to seizures. And he described to me personally, he had over 300 near-death experiences in which he was aware of his travels through multiple dimensions of consciousness, and he was communicating with other sentient beings who gave him the information about designing these breaths based on sacred geometry sequences to heal his own brain. So he experimented with developing the sequences, healed his own brain. He's pretty much a superhuman now. He's focused on all kinds of brain consciousness work, brain training. And when I met him in 2012, he had recently activated the technique of gamma breath. So I studied with him, learned these breath sequences. There's 6 specific breath sequences, and for how to use them. Like, for example, activating a certain new mindset, or processing and clearing an imprint or overlog that's happening in the brain, or amplifying a new frequency, or integrating an experience or a memory, to give an example. And at the time, I was working with the recovery community in Florida. I was a director of somatic therapies at a couple of elite recovery centers, and I was working with my biodynamic breath I had co-created back then. I started adding in the gamma breaths, and we saw these very significant results with the clients having longer times in recovery, not just being in recovery, but shifting their consciousness, seeing themselves and their lives in a whole new light. So it's like a whole different experience than even abstinence. So then I went on to develop breath sessions with just gamma breaths for healing of trauma, healing of addictions, improving relationships of all kinds, for business activations, for manifestation. Then we get into more metaphysical realms like multiple timeline processing and regressions and energy activations and the like. But so, yes, I might have gone to more topics.
No, that's great. I want to actually, before we get all into the specific breaths and all the things, I want to go back to the gamma for just a minute, because I think that some people don't understand what's important about being able to get into a gamma state. Like, why would someone want to access that state or that consciousness?
Yes, thank you. This is very key. Being in gamma is about being in the flow state. It's about thriving instead of surviving. So I'll add a little bit about other brainwaves in here to understand from a gamma context. So we have these other brainwaves that are part of our flow through the day: beta, alpha, theta, delta, and also zeta, which is something we talk about in gamma. And beta has to do loosely here and briefly with physical functioning, alpha with emotional functioning, theta with thought and process, delta with sleep regulation and rhythm and balance, zeta with action. I get there's also something called theta healing, and then there's alpha states, and those are different ways of looking at the multiple aspects and spectrums of what the brainwaves are about. But from a gamma perspective, what we do with these breaths is that then we gamify the physical, we gamify the mental, we gamify the emotional, we gamify the energetic by doing these very well-grounded breath sequences that incorporate the stimulation and the regulation of the other brain waves. We can intentionally amplify our flow state in all these areas. So say we are seeking more performance as an athlete, or more focus at work, or improving in our family unit, or honing our purpose and our passion and our goals. We're going to do this from the flow state instead of struggle. But also, it's not just about the flow state and gamma. There are so many benefits to these breaths by breathing into the flow state. It's about being able to generate the amount of energy required to process situations. So from a gamma perspective, in a session, we can access gently difficult traumatic memories and experiences in a titrated manner, and we have the energy available by breathing into gamma to access the address or the source of the issue, process it with the breath, free up that energy, and convert it into gamma. So then the address where the loop or the trauma or the reaction or the pattern and the limitation in life has been continuing is now neutralized, and that energy that it takes to hold that in place is now available to thrive. So when we work with the gamma breath and gamma breath sessions and trainings, we are improving our gamma quotient so that we have a baseline state of gamma that gets exponentially elevated the more and more we practice gamma in our lives. And we can do this with as simply as a basic gamma breath 100 times a day if you want, or twice a day if you want. And I'll explain more about how to do that in a little bit, but you can improve your flow state in your life in any area with gamma.
Okay, awesome. And so for someone who's never experienced that, is there a certain feeling that they have, like a feeling in their body, or a way that someone would know if they've accessed this gamma state?
Yes, so most people describe a sensation of present, easeful flow, of mind being calm and clear, of energy and vibration flowing through the whole body, like all channels are now open, of feeling grounded and relaxed while at the same time feeling energized and stimulated, but in a natural way rather than a overactive way. So this is
Mm.
basically also a sensation of generosity and ease and well-being.
So it's like pulling someone out of that survival mode, this mode that where most of the world seems to be in, that it's like I'm in the survival, I'm always there, and now I'm moving, out of that stuck, and then I get to be in this state where everything is in a movement and flowing and feels well together. I call it the when I'm trying to explain like the flow state, it's like those moments when you have the synchronicities and the things that happen, they're not coincidences, right? Synchronicities, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, that just happened. It's like that's an outward sign that you're in the flow state, right? Or you have this message, somebody's going to call you, or you think about someone and they call you, and like, or you want to create or manifest something, and all of a sudden it just shows up. It's like there's physical manifestations around you that will kind of show that you're in the flow state, and then when you're in your body, then you can feel that as like, um, if I'm in a flow state, I don't feel like I'm not like this anymore. I'm not tense. I'm not in survival. I'm not in that fear, right? It's an opposite of a fear state for sure.
100%. And this is why, by the way, it is absolutely pouring here. I don't know if you can all hear it, but
Oh, we can hear it. Yeah.
oh my goodness. Okay. It's part of it. All this brain energy. So
Yeah.
that's why I love even the basic gamma breath as a simple tool you could use anywhere except maybe driving until you're really used to it. So that in any moment at choice, you can shift the vibe. So for example, say something stressful happened at work, take a few moments, feel into what's going on, and then do the basic gamma breath. It takes literally 1 minute. Or for example, getting home from a busy day, do a basic gamma breath just to complete and integrate the day and refresh and reset. At the end of the day, right before bed, to integrate and clear any energy from the day, or right before a meal, or first thing in the morning, or for connecting with your partner. Like anytime you can at cause with your breath, heal and release and clear all these stressors. And it's not just about a momentary relief. Every time we do a gamma breath, we are actually processing what's going on in the mind and the thoughts and the related emotions and energetic sensations, and gamifying it. So it's actually evolving and upgrading whatever's going on. So we can apply this to any stressor, yet we can also apply it to anything positive. Say we're having the best day ever, it's just a really fun time. Feel into that energy and then do the gamma breath to integrate higher states of consciousness. You can then amplify and develop more neural pathways for more of this way of being in addition.
Beautiful. Awesome. So what an incredible thing. So do you believe that it is possible to be in flow state like most of the time? Do you think that's our natural state?
I really do. In fact, I like to say that being in the flow state or being gamma is our birthright. So I'm going to start with a little bit about that. Depending on our experiences as we're being born, we may or may not produce quite a bit of DMT or oxytocin or a sense of well-being. And often in life, it could be an underlying pattern that we're aiming to catch up to that we're aiming to get to a space of feeling resourced and really well inside of ourselves. And like I was saying, it is our birthright to feel good. And as we traverse through life and learn our lessons and heal our karma and get more in tune with who we fully are and our gifts on this planet, then we get to experience higher and higher levels of well-being.
Mm.
Definitely the gamma breath, the gamma practices are a way of accelerating that. For sure, we can be in a baseline state of gamma. I can attest to that. So can all my facilitators that I've trained and
Yeah.
hundreds of times that I've guided who then practice the breath. I personally have gone from when I first discovered the gamma breath, even though I was already 12 years into breath work, other kinds of breath work, I was super stressed and super anxious. I was going through a divorce. I was going through custody proceedings. I was way overwhelmed. And that's when I met Corey Herter and learned about the gamma breath and started practicing it, incorporating into sessions, creating sessions with the gamma breath. And from then to now, I have intentionally gamified every area of my life. So truly,
Mm.
I wake up in a state of well-being, of feeling energized and clear, of feeling well in my body, with my daughter, she's a gamma being. She's a 15-and-a-half-year-old young lady and just like super grounded and centered in herself. And we live an idyllic lifestyle. We're in the jungle of Costa Rica. and doing a lot of curated projects. And each area that I focus gamma on, that area becomes gamified.
Mm.
So career, community, family, health, well-being, and then focusing it onto finances is another. And so it just continues like this, whichever area can be attended to, and the imprints that create any kind of survival in that area get addressed and focused on, then that area gets gamified and healed. So I also want to add that with gamma, it's a development over time. So if we develop that um, baseline state and then we gamify each area, more energy gets freed up. It becomes exponential. The more energy we can then access to develop in certain areas of life. So whatever area wasn't accessible at a certain time will become accessible in its most aligned moment when the amount of gamma quotient is available to open up that area. And I'm currently experiencing that in a certain area for sure.
I love it. And I love that you say gamify because it's like instead of playing games and gamifying our lives, we're gamifying our lives, and it really does shift our entire, the human potential that we have. The ability to be in that flow state, to gamify your life will completely change how you show up in the world and the things that you can create and live through, and your health and your wealth and your well-being. And, I believe that this type of work and getting in these states and doing this is the key to longevity. I just went to a biohacking conference last week and I was there for 3 days, and there's the red light therapies, there's this, there's like the cold plunge, there's all these wonderful things, and it's so much fun, and there's all these techniques outside of ourselves. But people like you and I who know, like, we teach processes that I'm like, I can teach you something that you can use that's an internal process that is going to keep you younger than all that stuff out there.
Amazing, amazing. Yes, yes. I definitely see that in you. Such a superpower.
Yeah. So it's so beautiful. Like, this is the power of this type of breath. So you teach, you said there's 6 different gamma breath sequences. And we're gonna do one today, but I'd love to know, like, what is there a difference between the 6 of them? Is there, like, for specific things? Like, tell us a little bit more about the 6 different techniques.
Yes. So these different breath sequences are incorporated into gamma breath sessions according to what's needed. So, for example, we always start with a basic gamma breath. This is the umbrella breath that's good for everything. So if everybody here learns this one breath sequence, which is quick to learn, you could use it for everything from processing any stressor or difficult experience to amplifying and intending on anything that's great and positive. Then after that, we have the activation gamma breath. It's a bit more complex. It involves, well, all the breaths involve mouth and nose breathing, by the way. And then as we get into the more complex breaths, they have different lengths, like slow, medium, fast, like 5 seconds, 3 second inhales and exhales, and so on. The activation breath in a session is designed to set in motion our intention for the session, to
Mm.
say that it is about wave the initiate becoming a global sensation, right? And say we all want to breathe about that. We set the intention, we tune into that frequency, and then we do this activation breath. So how that would work for anyone in your lives is tune into what your goal is right now, whether it's to heal something, whether it's to activate something new, and then you would get to do this activation breath. This
Mm.
creates an instruction in our consciousness so that everything else that ensues in that day or in a gamma breath session is exactly aligned with what we need to uncover. And then we have the amplification gamma breath, also a more complex breath. This one is designed for accessing already ingredients that are available to us. So say we can scan across our lifetime for experiences of laughter, for example, or of a lot of gratitude or a loving heart connection with our friends,
Mm.
family, just any positive experience from childhood to now, and just feel into these memories, scan them like a movie. You feel intercellular memory, how those are amplifying and magnifying. And then we do the amplification breath. What this does is develop new neural pathways for those kinds of frequencies and experiences to now actualize in present and future in our lives. We're creating a brain consciousness for that to exist, more of it. So in gamma breath sessions, or for those who are well versed in gamma or have trained in it, you could use this breath any time of day for exactly that. Like, say you were in a meeting and a new project's being developed, you could do the amplification breath so that more information, more action steps, downloads, instructions come in on how to
Mm.
develop it, for instance. Then we have the gamma breath for processing. This is a very powerful breath. It is the the one and only breath required for processing and healing of any difficulty. This could be from the deepest rooted traumas to some kind of niggling frustration, from deep addictive tendency to just horrible abuse, whatever it might be. This process breath is designed for in a gentle, titrated manner, helping to resolve these issues. And how it works is that in a session, and this is usually where it's mostly used, we set the intention for the session, right? And then we tune in, okay, a memory's coming up from childhood of something that happened. Or it could even be that somebody doesn't remember, but there's a sensation or that something happened. And then we use this breath to process that sensation or the memory we already know about. The wave processing, meaning that we're pulling up the charge, we call it, so that it's in our awareness. We can sense the vibration of it in our cells, in our body. And then we just do this breath, which is designed to access the source of it. And then the breath creates a freeing up of that frequency, as I was describing before. Then this frequency of that issue becomes neutralized. The gamma just floods through the whole brain, through the whole body, and neutralizes the imprint. And when it's deeper traumas, more serious issues, loss, bereavement, and so on, then throughout the session or a series of few sessions is all it takes. We look at more and more layers, aspects, dimensions of the memories. It's not even needed to access all of them. It's just the ones that show the access point of the whole web and field. And then we do this breath and it will just convert that whole charge to neutral and free up the energy. As I was mentioning before, this breath really helps to free up energy. Because, for example, we all have 100% of our energy, but a lot of it could be locked up in an old injury, in an old enclosed hearts, in holding down a big trauma that wasn't available for processing before. But when we get to gamma, or even if we thought we processed it before, with gamma we'll see what's left, and then that energy is now free. Now we have way more of our energy. And that's when then we can even do the amplification breath to amplify that energy in a new direction, whatever's now opening up in our consciousness based on all the breaths we've already done. So then that's how we then start to get to a sweet spot with a session, or just if we're really well versed and can guide ourselves through gamma at any point in the day, to have a new access point, new understanding, new template, new paradigm of who we are, how we're seeing ourselves, new perspectives about our relationship to self or the situation in our life. And that's when we can do what's called the gamma integration breath. So we now have the new template, the new blueprint in our consciousness, and download that into our bodies. So that's what the integration breath is for. There's one more breath that's used sometimes, and this one's for turning off situations. Like, say we've already done all the processing needed and there's a niggling just memory or thought or reaction to something, that breath comes in as an added tool for turning off that situation. And there are many more gamma breaths that are actually on the side, other tools for specifically focusing on certain brain waves, like regulating something that has an imprint on the physical, say an injury. Then we use beta gamma breaths, or on the emotional, alpha gamma breaths, or on the belief system, theta gamma breaths, and so on. So there's a lot more to it, but these,
amazing.
yeah.
And is there anything specific for someone that, say, wants to really tap into like their intuition and clarity because they need to get an answer to a question? Because we got a lot of high performers that watch this here, and they're like, okay, how can I use this to help me in my in my day?
Absolutely. I would just say still to start with the basic gamma breath. That
Perfect.
is really the access point to everything and the easiest one to memorize. The
Okay.
Yeah, the amplification breath could be next, but yeah, that's kind of more complex and some practicing involved with that one.
All right. Well, then I think we're going to go there next. Can we
So,
start with this and learn this first breath, or walk us through it so we can all do it with you?
sounds great. So we can do this breath with eyes open or closed. I would suggest let's all close our eyes for this first experience of this breath. And I would suggest, because we normally start with a little grounding, let's just take a few seconds here to scan our bodies, to listen to sounds in our environment, to notice any scent, And then let's start to pay attention to our breath. It's always with us, but now it's a moment of, oh, yes. See if each of us want to do something with our breath now that we're aware of it. Is it a deeper breath? Is it a slower breath? Is it a mouth breath or a nose breath? And as we each just stay really present to ourselves, I'm going to describe how this gamma breath works. So just stay inwardly present. We're going to breathe with our full body. It isn't just about our lungs or feeling that the breath going into our abdomen or such. It's that there's an entire alchemy occurring throughout our entire body and our energy field. So the breaths are big, spacious, and open. So when we breathe through our mouth, it's like it's a relaxed jaw and ah, and through the nose, just relax nasal passages. And we could place our palms together. There's mudras involved in the breath. So mudra being a Sanskrit word for energy conductors with our hands. This one is for coherence of left and right brain hemisphere and our whole body. So each inhales 3 seconds, each exhales 3 seconds. All right, so I would close our eyes again, and here we go. So in mouth, out mouth, in mouth, out nose, in nose, out nose, in nose, out mouth. Again, in mouth, out mouth, in mouth, out nose, in nose, out nose, in nose, out mouth. One more set. Big and spacious breaths in mouth, out mouth, in mouth, out nose, in nose, out nose, in nose, out mouth. And one more in mouth and out mouth. Excellent. Let's just take a few moments to go inward, dropping into the effects of the gamma energy. Breathe easy. And then we can take our time, though, whenever everybody's ready, just slowly opening your eyes.
I could definitely notice, obviously, because I've worked so much with the different brain waves. I know which, where I'm at. And one of the things that I know when I'm in gamma is I start spinning. I start swirling like this, like I can feel. And I was like, oh, I could feel myself like starting to spin. I was like, oh, That's so beautiful.
That's
Love it.
awesome. Oh,
Mm.
that's so awesome. And that's with one gamma breath. I'm certain that everyone here viewing our talk is having these experiences. And just know that you can exponentially build from there. So if you want to seek an answer to something, do a gamma breath first. If you want to tune in to see how you're really feeling about something, do a gamma breath first.
Yeah.
Before making an important decision, do a gamma breath. Before
Hmm.
going out into the world, do a gamma breath. And it becomes exponential, this well-being. You can access this present meditative space in a minute.
Yeah. So one of the reasons that I decided to do this, co-author this book, The Way of the Initiate, Stories of Remembering, Awakening, and the New Human, is because we are in a place where we need techniques like this to get out into the world and bring these communities together, because I believe we are currently in a collective initiation. The entire planet is going through an initiation, and through that, we need to bring together new not new, but techniques and communities. And one of the things that you really talk about is gamifying communities. And so what does that mean? And when we think about this collective initiation that this world is going through, how is this going to support us while we go through this?
Yeah, I see a mass consciousness upgrade into gamma. I would say it's already happening around the planet with so many people waking up, creating new ways of being, new, more functional and regenerative systems, and more people anchoring a grid of light and awareness and being leaders on the planet. And there's a lot of transformation and processing also going on at the same time, a lot of cleansing, a lot of systems that are changing. And my mission is to support people around the globe in these big gatherings, mass symposiums, big festivals, big gatherings where thousands of people get together. We set intention and we all go through these progressions of gamma breaths together to activate this unified consciousness. And when so many people breathe together, it's an exponential upgrade. It's inevitable. People will feel it in their own lives with all their loved ones in their communities, with their families. When people breathe together, it's this unbelievable expansion. So that's what I'm here to share. And this kind of breathing is actually quite futuristic. And so it's a pretty new technique, and I'm thrilled to be the torchbearer for it and to bring it around the planet. It is my mission, global gamma consciousness.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because we hear a lot about breath work these days, right? Like there's holotropic breath, there's 9D breath, there's Wim Hof breath, there's all these different types of breath and breath work and, different things that are out there. And so many of you may have heard of the Wim Hof or heard of one of these others, but this gamma breath, she said it's of the future, right? Like which I love. And so when we think and look at this elevated states of consciousness, what role do you believe that elevated states of consciousness plays in the future of humanity?
Yes. The way I see it, elevated states of consciousness support us to thrive, to be in harmony with ourselves, with each other, to access higher states of consciousness, to download information from other realms, other planes that can benefit our planet. I see beautiful communities developing around in the world with new types of construction, crystal grids, new ways of learning. Our new generations that are coming in so bright get to develop new skills and abilities on the planet. I see that this elevated state of consciousness will shift the karmic path of the planet. I would like to say that those of us in recent generations have been doing a lot of work for our transformation in service that our new generations can illuminate quicker. I'd say this is a time of big illumination, and we're entering uncharted territory for our planet. It's going to be about people living in harmony and abundance and thriving in collaboration. Whole new systems, higher sensory abilities coming online. There's already many people who can remote view or astral travel or shift timelines or communicate telepathically. And these are skills and gifts that actually are available to all of us if we can be in a thriving state and cleanse sufficiently to unlock these
Yeah.
abilities
Yeah.
and more and
It's
more.
what I teach in the mystery school. Like that's the keys to this stuff, right? But you have to be in a different state and an altered state, in that flow state. You have to be able to access these different things to be able to have those connections. And we're living in such a state in the world, so many people of a chase, right? Chasing a high, success, achievement, substance validation, relationships, or stuck in stress that they're not able to be in that. And when we get into things like using the techniques like gamma breath to get into this, gamify our lives and get into this state, we're going to be able to have such more access to such incredible technology, I believe, that is available to us. So, let's see where we are at. So, when you hear the phrase "high on life," because this is the High on Life podcast, what does that mean to you?
To me, it's a sensation of celebration, of art, open-heartedness, of being in alignment with purpose and passion, of freedom, of sharing and generosity with gifts, of connecting with others, of being embodied and feeling really well. And it's all from this inner cultivation instead of the external. It's just accessing the gifts of our body temple and our beingness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yummy. Thank you, Raquel, so much for joining us today. If you guys want to connect with Raquel more, go to the show notes. You'll be able to find out how to connect with her, to find out about the her Breath Academy, the Gamma training, retreats, events that she's at, things that she's speaking at, all of the fun stuff. And also go to the link below, sign up on the wait list to get the Way of the Initiate when it launches here in September. And we would love to have you to join us in everything that we're creating. So grateful to have you here. Thank you so much, Raquel.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I want to mention one thing. I also have my book, Gamify Your Life, that's going to be coming out, and that'll have all the tools available so it could be more widespread after the Way of the Initiate.
Awesome. Yes, we had even more books. So we'll definitely stay connected to make sure you get all that information in the show notes below. Bye,
Thank,
everybody.
thank you.